Hey, Talk Tuners. We are here today with a bit of a special episode. Hope everyone's doing well and hope we're having a good summer. As usual, I'm Stephanie Myers.
Hey, and I'm Stephanie Pena.
We're both really excited because today we are joined by our longtime friend, Ken Partridge.
Ken!
Hey, what's up, guys?
Thrilled, and we're raising the roof. And he's written a book that we'd really recommend if you're looking for some great summer music reading, as I literally always am. So he has his book, Hell of a Hat, The Rise of 90s Ska and Swing. It's released by Penn State University Press on September 21st. Ken, welcome and congratulations.
Welcome. Hey, thank you so much for having me, you guys. It's This is super fun to catch up with you guys because it's been a while since we've all been in the same place at the same time. You guys both were here at one point, and I'm in New York City, and you've moved on to other places. So yeah, this is nice. It's like a little reunion of sorts.
It is. I love it. And congratulations. What an accomplishment, man. I always knew when we were back in the day, I'm like, man, us all being music nerds, that you were going to write something. I knew it was going to happen.
Well, thank you.
It's great. I can't wait to read it. So, all
right.
Let's get started, y'all. So tell me, Ken, what made you write Hell of a Cat? Can you talk a little bit about your ska fandom?
I sort of wanted to write the book just because I felt this was a moment in pop culture that had not really been discussed in book form.
Yeah.
People think about the 90s, and there was grunge, obviously, and gangster rap, and those things have been written about quite a bit. And that kind of paints a picture of the decade as being this sort of dark and angsty time. But I was a teenager in the late 90s. So my perspective of the decade was ska and swing music and, dudes with saxophones and zoot suits and stuff. And it was not at all, Kurt Cobain being bummed out, although I do love Nirvana and I love all that stuff too. But
right.
So I just wanted to look at that half of the 90s and, maybe, kind of look at the music, but also talk about kind of why I think that it got popular when it did. And as for my own ska fandom, I had no idea what it was until my last day of middle school. This would have been August 95, I guess. And
yeah, we're all around the same age. I say 95.
95
sounds about right. Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a field trip or something. So we're all about to go on a bus, and everyone's got their Discmans, and I probably had Spin Doctor CD and maybe the first couple Green Day albums. I'd sort of gotten into the older Green Day. So I was, I was
punk era.
Exactly. I was, pretty punk rock at that time, as you can tell. But somebody just had a stack of all these ska records. It was Voodoo Glow Skulls and Operation Ivy. And I was like, what is this stuff? I had no idea.
Right.
It's punk rock, but there's some horns with it, and they're wearing suits and stuff. What is this stuff? So that whole summer, before high school, I just, this was before the internet was really a thing. So it was kind of hard to find stuff out, but I sort of cobbled together a sort of basic knowledge of what ska music was. And then, by the time high school started, I was pretty hardcore into it and, stayed into it pretty much for the next 4 years. And, and until now, obviously too, but it was my, sort of thing for a long time.
Well, let me ask you this, because as we all know, growing up, music is not just music; it's fashion too. It's a lifestyle. So, did you have the whole ska get up? Did you buy a suit?
The rude boy outfit and stuff. To varying degrees of success. I mean, I was in the suburbs outside of Hartford, so you just kind of which is not a high fashion area per se. No diss on Hartford, but we would go to thrift stores and try to find suit jackets and skinny ties and. Whatever kind of stuff we could find. And sometimes it would work out. Sometimes we would just look, I'm sure we just looked like old businessmen or something. We had bad suits with really wide lapels and stuff. And but pickers can't be choosers, so we were take what you can get.
I actually dated a guy in a ska band in high school.
Oh, really?
So,
I want to hear about this for a second. What was the band called?
Now you bring it up, Stephanie. Now you got to talk about it.
Hail. Penile Pepper Smiles. Let's laugh for a minute. Okay.
Wow.
That is a fantastic band name.
That's amazing.
They were ska and punk, so it was pretty funny. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. I'm just gonna stop there. They were popular, of course, with all the kids in school and stuff. So yeah, but it was fun. It really dating someone in a ska band gave me the leeway to buy those black and white docs I always wanted.
Yes, the wingtips. The
wingtips.
Yeah. That's a good looking shoe. I never had that. I had the boot.
Dude.
My friend had the wingtip docs, and I was sort of coveted those shoes. I would have stolen them from him, but they were not my size. So.
Not your size. Yeah.
I was stuck with.
I always gotta go back to the docs.
Yeah. They're good all-purpose.
That's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So go ahead, Steph. Your turn.
Yeah. So Ken, just thinking about your research process for the book, I know you did a lot of deep dives in addition to your fandom. What was kind of the most surprising thing that you found out while you're researching and writing the book and going through that process?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because they were just. I mean, I talked to like all these bands that I loved when I was like 17 or whatever. So it was like all revelations, and it was like not even things that, it was like to me, it's like Mustard Plug was like the Beatles to me or something when I was 17. So like to actually have like the dude on my phone, it was like wow, it's like this band that I care.
Yeah,
wow, that's so cool.
So yeah, there were like a lot of those. I don't know. Like there was part of it where I was learning about Moon Ska Records, which was like the big ska label here. I'm here in New York City that kind of was like I'm sort of behind the whole third wave kind of taking off. They were founded back in the 80s, and they really like helped a lot of bands, and were just kind of like instrumental in making ska in America be a thing. I sort of learned in talking to some folks that there was like an opportunity for them to sign with a major label at one point, like around 95, 96 or something, and they passed on it because it wasn't a great deal, and they kind of didn't want to bet this whole thing that they had like built up over the last like almost 20 years on this major label, and if it didn't work out, it would have sort of tanked the whole label and like everything they built and all the goodwill, and so they didn't do it, and it was probably for the best. I don't know, because the deal would have been with, I believe, Mercury Records, and not long after that there was a big like merger between them and I think like Def Jam, and everything got all shifted around. People got like fired, and I'm not sure what that would have actually meant for Moon Records if they had been on Mercury at that point. But like as it happened, they stayed going until about 2000, when like ska just kind of like the bottom kind of fell out of it, and they went bankrupt. But they had a great run. I mean, they were probably the most important label and third wave ska certainly, but like up there with Two Tone Records, which was like the sort of a second wave of ska as they call it, or so. That was interesting.
See, this is awesome. I had no idea there was a first wave, second wave, and then a third wave. This is so cool.
Well,
okay, so let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back. So for folks on the line that don't know what ska music is, let us enlighten you. So go, Ken, please, because you are the SME.
No, go for it.
All right. Well, I'm not the SME, but ska for me, in my definition, is basically fun music that has, it's rock and roll. It's kind of like a rockabilly, and it'll have sax in it, and it's just it's just like fun party music. I don't really know how to explain it well. Ken, you're more
So I'm actually I'm from Jamaica. That's where I was born in the sort of late 50s and early 60s. Yeah, See? It was sort of like Jamaica's my first ever pop music that was kind of exported to the world. Like they had their own kind of folk music that was called mento before that, which there's some sort of threads of that kind of carry into ska a little bit, but I would say that the main kind of like influence on the ska sound back in the late 50s and early 60s was I'm a sort of more like American R&B. It was like Fats Domino kind of stuff, because songs were kind of played on the offbeat on the piano, the that kind of thing, and like that's what kind of created like the kind of signature ska sound, which is like the sort of skanking guitar sound, which that kind of that plus the drum sound of ska is really what sort of defines it. And it was super big in Jamaica for about 4 or 5 years. It was like exported all over the world. It was at like the 1964 World's Fair here in New York City. They had like a big ska like exhibition, but then it kind of went away because it turned into rock steady music, which was like a little bit kind of more of like a slow down version of ska, and then that became reggae, which is like a little bit slower than rock steady. So yeah, like you can think of ska as just kind of being like the grandfather to reggae, and it's like faster and like more upbeat, more horns, but basically like the same kind of beat that you hear on like a Bob Marley record. And Bob Marley actually was a ska musician at first. Like a lot of the big reggae guys, go back to like the early '60s, and they were like they were like ska musicians, like Toots and the Maytals, and like all these people were ska before they were reggae, basically.
That makes sense. Oh my God, I'm enlightened. Literally, when I think ska, I think Mighty Mighty Bosstones. It's like all of a sudden I put on MTV and there was these guys in suits talking about AIDS, and I'm like, oh, all right, it's the '90s. So that's awesome. Okay, cool.
So it's sort of obviously it's I've definitely gone through a lot of permutations since the first Jamaican. Like there are bands now that kind of play it in that kind of traditional Jamaican style, and then there's bands that do more of the ska punk thing. And during the kind of like what they call the third wave in America, I would say that it was more the kind of ska punk stuff that got popular. Although there were some more of the kind of trad bands that had like a national presence, but it was a lot of the kind of ska punk bands that kind of made it more like palatable to teenagers in America and things like that.
Okay, so that was part of the third wave. So the ska that I associate is the third wave.
That's the third wave. Yeah.
Okay.
And the one that we're skipping, the second wave, was in the UK in the late '70s, which was kind of brought about because there was like a big Jamaican population in the UK, because it was a former colony of the UK, and as soon as Jamaica got its independence, the UK kind of like invited a bunch of Jamaican people to come to the UK, because they just gone through World War II and they'd been kind of decimated, and they needed more people to come and work, frankly. So they were like, hey, like well, you Jamaicans come, and they obviously treated them horribly, and they did not like have a great life once they got to the UK, but they were there. So this there was like a long tradition of there being like West Indian music in the UK. Like in London, there's just like massive populations of Jamaican folks. So like by the second wave of the ska, what they call it, you had the sort of children of that first wave of Jamaican immigrants, kind of mixing it up with like the punk rock kids that were like the kind of like white British kids. And they started making all these bands that were kind of mixed race. So it'd be like, black and white kids playing together, and they mixed, punk rock and rock and roll with Jamaican music. And that's how you had bands like the Specials and Madness and the English Beat. And that's what is thought of as the second wave. And but those songs are like, super political, like, super like anti-racist and like anti-capitalist. And it was kind of, there was like somewhat of like a political aspect to the first wave of ska, like back in Jamaica, just because it was like around the time of the country getting its independence. So it was, that was there. But with the second wave, really, that was when it really became like hardcore political music, and like trying to fight against racism. And it was cool. It was great, great music. Yeah.
Right on. I had no idea. English Beat. Oh my God, I'm learning so much today. I'm like, all right, cool.
And I love just talking about music history. I always have, and just the context of music in a larger historical context. I think, sometimes we meet people who think music and pop culture is just siloed over here, but it fits always into this larger historical context. And I nerd out about those kind of things. So love hearing about
that's a good point. I mean, it's true. I mean, if you think about it, like I guess like if not for, World War II, like this all might not have happened at some point. I don't know. It is kind of weird how you think about how like, culture travels over boundaries. And that's what's cool about ska, I think, is because it is so like adaptable, and, so like it got a little bit more sort of punk rock in the UK, like had that kind of element to it. But then like by the time it gets to the States, bands like Fishbone and stuff, they just like, throw everything into the pot. So it's like metal and like, rock and like funk, and, ska can be pretty much anything now, as long as it's got that kind of like, skanking guitar sound. mixed in somewhere with it,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, and ska and swing, often get affiliated with each other. So I think about the '90s, and I think about again, I'm always going to throw out Mighty Mighty Bosstones. That's just like what I remember from ska.
I love the
And then,
Bosstones. Yeah.
yeah, and then at that same time, the Stray Cats were on the rise as well. And so I know folks can get the two genres mixed up, because they're kind of blended in a way, but not. And that's something that you point out in your book too, Ken. Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah, well, they kind of rose to fame. I mean, around the same time. I mean, they've both been kind of going for a while. Like, ska in America had been, since two-tone kind of took off in the UK. Like, it wasn't too long after that like ska bands in America started popping up, and the whole swing thing was. I think Brian Setzer, like you mentioned, who had been in the Stray Cats in the '80s, had this big band that got like super popular in the '90s. Right. The Brian Setzer Orchestra. The whole swing thing was like I would say it's kind of like a parallel thing that was happening to ska. Like there were some people that played in both kinds of bands, but it was this whole like West Coast people sort of like discovering old jump blues records and like Louis Jordan and things like that. This kind of music of like the late 40s that kind of came before rock and roll, but still kind of had a lot of pep to it, and saxophones and stuff. And it was kind of like San Francisco and Los Angeles were sort of like the two big places where swing culture kind of took off from like the late 80s all through the 90s until it, I guess, had its mainstream moment in like 98 was when you saw like Brian Setzer all over the radio, and Cherry Poppin' Daddies had Zoot Suit Riot, and Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, they were really big too. So I mean, it was like a separate thing, but I think there were like a lot of people who were fans of both of them, and like, just on a kind of superficial level, they're kind of similar in that it's like horns, dancing, people in suits. So I think to like people who were just like maybe not paying that close attention, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of the same thing. Like Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and like the tones are kind of the same in some ways. Yeah.
Exactly. So it just kind of all blended together just because of style, the fashion again that comes in. Right. So, yeah. Do you prefer one over the other?
I mean, I was definitely more of a ska kid back in the 90s. Like I had a lot of the swing records, but there weren't as many like swing bands. So like I wasn't going to like swing shows every weekend just because. Sure. I mean, I don't think there were any in sort of suburban Hartford, but ska bands, there was like 35 ska bands in my high school probably or something. It's like get the trombone kid from the band, and so I mean, I'm definitely more of a ska person, but I do like the swing music a lot, and I think both of them, as I talk about in the book, I think this kind of late 90s period where like all the sort of like depressing stuff in the first half of the decade was kind of forgotten about for a while, and like the economy was going really well, and I just think that ska and swing were like kind of the right music for that time period of like the kind of late Clinton years, and like the economy's booming and the dot-com bubble, and there's kind of all sorts of bad things were like on the horizon that we just didn't foresee coming, and
that's and Ken, that's exactly what I was thinking about too, because you had talked a little bit about in the book how this economic prosperity, optimism of the 90s really created this environment for ska to flourish, to become popular. And it's it's something I weirdly think about a lot, because again, like I'm a pop culture nerd, I always think about it's like the trajectory of these things and this prosperous period in the late 90s. It really just spawned a certain kind of art. In terms of pop culture, there was music and film and television. It was just this certain buoyant optimism to it, and I'd love if you just like talked a little bit more about that, because it's something I'm fascinated with, and I just see it so much in this movement.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think buoyant is a good word for it. I mean, you had like TRL and I just think of like all the boy bands, and I mean even like the kind of like non-ska stuff that was on like alternative radio. It had gone from like Nirvana and Pearl Jam to like Third Eye Blind or like Smash Mouth. And it was just like things were getting a little bit more sort of upbeat. Like I think people had been like, okay, we've done the mopey thing for a while, and
we need to be happy now.
It was time for I'm not dissing those bands again. Like I love Nirvana. They're like one of my favorite bands. But I just think people had gotten to a point where like I don't know, it was just like time for a change, and Ska and Swing were just, two of the things. I mean, there's like a lot, there was like a lot of things going on in the late 90s that were like popular for a minute, but I just think that they kind of had like a perfect, kind of slot there to just, get sort of popular for a little while. And
yeah, I think about, just that time, late 90s, and I think about the splash that No Doubt made. Now, I know they're not a ska band, but they did have some type of influences on a couple of songs.
Yeah, they were a ska band at one point. Yeah, like they had been around. Yeah, like they're kind of a weird story because, they'd been around for almost, 10 years by the time they finally popped off. Like they formed in like, I think it was like 85 or 86 or something. So, and, Tragic Kingdom came out in 95, I believe it was. So it's like, that's, 10 years basically. And yeah, they were like a pretty hardcore ska band when they first started. But I think over time they, took on new members and they kind of like evolved their sound as bands often do. And there's still like elements of ska on Tragic Kingdom, but by and large, the songs that were the big hits by and large, like Don't Speak, obviously is just sort of like a power ballad. I mean, it's a fantastic song, but not ska really.
So folks, you need to go into the deep cuts into Tragic Kingdom, because outside of the radio play, you would never know that No Doubt had some ska, was a ska band, and has some influence in their music. So check it out.
Yeah.
Deep cuts. I think it's like, excuse me, mister. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, right?
That's a good one.
Yep.
Sunday Morning is a good one. Yeah. On the song Sunday Morning has sort of like a reggae feel to it that is. Kind of goes back to their ska roots a little bit, but it's a great album no matter what. I mean, I think, this is like the time when, people love to get mad at bands for like signing with majors and like, oh, you're a sellout and stuff like that. But I think Tragic Kingdom is actually a fantastic record, and it's better than their first record, which is like, when they were sort of more of a ska band on their first album. The songwriting had like really progressed, and you had, Gwen coming into her own as a songwriter. So Tragic Kingdom all the way, I say. But
yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So do you think that, maybe you'll see a comeback of ska, hitting that popularity level it had in the late 90s?
That's a good question. I mean, people have been talking about that, kind of a lot lately, because there's been kind of a resurgence of ska. There's like a lot of really cool new bands that are kind of taking it to the next level. I don't know if it'll ever kind of reach the same, level, just because like the world has really changed a lot since the late 90s. Right. Like with, the internet, I think things are more fragmented, and, back in those days, it was kind of more of like a monoculture, and like, there could be like a whole day about ska on like MTV, and then it was like, wow, that was a really big deal. But like now it wouldn't really matter that much. And so I don't know if it'll ever be like, it's all over the radio, kind of thing ever again. But I mean, it's I've definitely found a, new audience among the, Gen Z kids, or I don't even know what they call the kids. I guess it's like Gen Z, or millennial.
Whatever.
But, like there's this.
What is it these days? I don't even know.
Who even knows?
I think it is Gen Z. I think you're
as long as they like ska, then they can call themselves whatever they want. But like there's this band out of Philadelphia called Cat Bite, who like I would definitely recommend them to anyone who is like, ska. Like they're absolutely fantastic. They kind of bring in like a power pop kind of sound to it, and I love that band. So I would say if anybody wants to like check out any kind of new ska, check out Cat Bite or Bad Operation, who are out of New Orleans. They're fantastic. Right.
I will. Thank you. I think, stuff, you got to tap into that if you haven't listened to those bands. So,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, show.
Really appreciate kind of like hearing all of your ska background, Ken, because you really are, it's like you're a fan, you're also an expert. But just wanting to hear, like, what are some of your favorite just ska-related memories of the past, whether that's from teenage years or on? Because I just know it's been a backdrop for so much of your life.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, back when I was high school, back when I was in high school, it was like that was just kind of like our thing to do on weekends. We would just go to see shows. So there's many memories that are kind of associated with that. But I know the one that kind of stands out is like after I got to college. Actually, this is probably 2000, I would say. I was up in Boston, and I got a jury duty for some reason. Like I got called for jury duty, and I actually got picked for the jury, even though I was like, I'm a college kid. I got like finals coming up. Like, like, we don't care.
No, the law.
You're on the jury,
right?
And I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. I was, like
Oh my God.
I mean, if I were like a little bit smarter, I probably could have figured out a way to not have jury duty. But nevertheless, there I was. So we were all in this room, and we were kind of going around the room and just like saying like who we are and what we did. And there was this guy on the jury who had like written a book about reggae music. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I got to talk to this guy next time there's like a break in the action. So we sort of got to talking, and it turned out that there was going to be a show that night in Boston with the Skatellites, who were like the original Jamaican band, who are sort of credited with kind of like inventing ska more or less. Like it had been there before these guys actually formed up as the Skatellites, and I think it was like 1964, I believe it was. Like all these guys had like kind of played on different records. They were like the best of the best in terms of like Jamaica's session players kind of thing. And they came together and made this band, the Skatellites. And, they're just, it's, sort of fantastic music. I mean, I would say like for anyone who has like not heard ska like at all, start with the Skatellites maybe, and like, kind of like hear what it's actually supposed to sound like. And then, check out the kind of mutations of it. But yeah, so anyway, so the guy was like, yeah, like the Skatellites are in town, tonight at like the House of Blues. And I was like, oh, I'm, 20. I'm not 21 yet. He's like, don't worry about it. He's like, come with me to the show as my special guest. And like, you can meet the band. So I get to meet the Skatellites.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. So like,
Good
I got to go backstage. I got to meet the Skatellites.
That's cool.
I had a red stripe. I wasn't even 21 yet, but I got to have a red stripe.
Of course it was a red stripe too, right?
Oh my God, I used to have a red stripe keychain.
Great Jamaican beer.
I mean, I figured, like, well, I don't know. I was 20 years old. What do you want? But I was like, yeah, give me a red stripe. But
Hell yeah.
But they were all super nice. We were talking about jury duty and just, these like old Jamaican dudes who like by that point they were, probably like in their, 60s or 70s, but they were, super sweet guys. And then, they played an amazing set. It was just absolutely, fantastic to see it. And so, yeah, kind of weirdly, my like best ska memory probably has to do with jury duty.
Oh my God, that's fucking phenomenal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah,
like,
there's
you sound like the granddaddy. That's badass. Like, oh my God. Wow.
Well, there's like a lesson here that like if you get called for jury duty, like you should go because you never know who might who could be on your jury. It could be, you might make a friend for life. Although I didn't make a friend for life in this case, but I had a fantastic night that I would not have had ordinarily. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. I've got called in for jury duty once and I wasn't picked. And oh my God, but I had to wait the entire day.
Oh no.
For them to tell me, oh no, you're not needed, but here's your $15. Have a nice day or whatever.
You didn't get to meet a cool band at all.
Yeah, no, I didn't get any of that.
Man, I'm so sorry.
I just got it was Valentine's Day, it was raining, it was all lame and
Kenya, I'm sorry.
That's nearly as cool.
That's terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, mine was real shitty. But anyway, that's so awesome. So the Skatellites, all right.
Yeah,
I definitely
check out the Skatellites. They're,
okay.
These were like, top flight, jazz musicians in Jamaica who just kind of picked up this rhythm and just ran with it and kind of created this whole, beautiful kind of music that, like, as I said, has been, mutating like ever since really in all these kind of like weird, interesting ways. But yeah, that's the foundation of it is sort of these core, guys out of Kingston who were just, they were just like amazing musicians. And it's,
Awesome. So anything else you'd like to add, just in general about your book, maybe the promotion, anything in particular you would want to throw out there, Ken?
No, just that I guess I'm excited for people to read it. I mean, it's been a long time coming and, it's a time period that I guess, holds a lot of, special memories for me. And I guess for lots of other people who are, our age in the late 90s, I hope they'll, go back and, it kind of talks about all the big ska bands, all the big swing bands. So, I mean, I think it's cool for people that were like hardcore fans, but I think even if you were just like, I had a Brian Setzer Orchestra CD, like that's cool. Like you might like that part of the book or, Big Bad Ruby Daddy or, Cherry Poppin' Daddies or something, like all that's in there. So it's, it's like a real time capsule, I think of those years. So.
Awesome. It's great.
I just want to say thank you, Ken, for joining us today. This has been
thank you so much for having me. This has been
awesome.
Really fun.
And we've learned a lot and we've heard some amazing stories and I've loved this. Talk Tuners, again, the book is called Hell of a Hat, The Rise of 90s Ska and Swing. That's released by Penn State University Press. It's going to be out September 21st. You can pre-order it today. I encourage you to do that. Again, summer music reading. We're here to make some recommendations. We recommend this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Enlighten yourselves. I know I'm going to enlighten myself because I'm over the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. I want to listen to the Skatellites.
No, the Bosstones are great. The Bosstones are great.
Take that out of context.
Yeah, Bosstones in the first
chapter.
Yeah. But
no, of course. But that was like my intro. But you blown my mind, Ken. Like I had no idea that ska originated in Jamaica. I feel like such a dumbass. Of course it did.
Not a dumbass. But no, that's what's cool about it. Like the Bosstones are cool, and the Skatellites are cool. There's room for all of it. So
yes, there is, and the Voodoo Glow Skulls. I do enjoy that.
Oh yeah.
Aren't they from Texas? Am I making that up?
No, they're from Southern California.
California.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking they're from Texas. Anyway, that's another side story. All right. Well, no, I'm super excited. Thank you so much, Ken, for coming on. Let me just go ahead and echo that sentiment. And for all the Talk Tuners out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a little bit something new, or maybe even gain some more knowledge on an awesome music genre that hopefully will come back, in full force, because it should. It's fun. It's great. It's creative. And thank you for listening. So, and for those Talk Tuners that have left reviews for us, thank you so much. This is episode 8. We are trying our best to keep things fresh and fun. I'm sorry?
This one's episode 9.
Oh, it's 9. Oh my God. See, look. Yeah, that 40-year-old brain, man. It's episode 9. Sorry. So 9th episode here. And, we're happy that you're listening, and please feel free to drop, a review on Apple Podcasts or, wherever you can to help us with visibility. We appreciate it. And remember to reach out to us on the socials. That is Stephanie and Stephanie Talk Tunes. And we thank you again. Ken, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys. It was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will talk to you guys later. Thanks again.
Bye. Bye.